Welcome to Vivid Verses. If our words resonate with you, please subscribe, tap the like, and share your thoughts and your feelings in the comments. Now let's begin. You want the full after-action report. You want to know why I scrubbed a 6-month investment in 45 minutes. You think I'm rigid. You think I treated a human relationship like a compromised server. You're right. I did. But you're wrong about the motivation. This wasn't about hurt feelings. I don't have time for hurt feelings. This was about operational security and the fundamental inability of most people to understand the concept of a need-to-know basis. I'm going to walk you through the anatomy of the failure. I'm going to break down the vetting process, the breach, and the extraction. You need to understand the logic because if you don't, you're going to make the same mistakes in your own life. I don't let people in easily. You know what I do for a living? I manage high-stakes logistics for clients who can't afford mistakes. My days are spent mitigating risk, plugging leaks, and ensuring that A gets to B without C finding out. I live in a world of non-disclosure agreements and encrypted channels. That mindset doesn't turn off when I clock out. It can't. If you live a life of control, you can't invite chaos into your living room and expect it to stay contained. I vetted Nina. I didn't just date her, I audited her. We met at a conference. She was in marketing, I was in logistics. She seemed sharp. She didn't talk about her exes on the first date. That's usually the first red flag, a sign of someone who hasn't processed their past data. She treated the waitstaff with respect, which suggests a stable ego. She didn't check her phone every 3 minutes, which suggests she has an attention span longer than a goldfish. For the first 90 days, the probationary period, she was airtight. We operated well. She respected my time. She didn't demand constant text validation during work hours. She understood that when the door to my office is closed, I'm not a boyfriend. I am a machine processing problems. Because she passed the audit, I initiated the next phase. I decided to grant her clearance to the deeper architecture of my life. Here is the reality of my psychology. I spend 12 hours a day being the hardest object in a room. I make hundreds of decisions. I carry the weight of consequences. If I screw up, people lose money, or worse. That level of sustained control creates a pressure differential. It needs a release valve. If I don't vent that pressure, the boiler explodes. My release valve is the inversion of my reality. In the bedroom, I don't want to be the boss. I don't want to make decisions. I don't want to be in charge. I have a specific, hardwired need to surrender control. I want to be told what to do. I want to be passive. It's not about weakness. It's about the luxury of abdication. It is the only place in my life where I am allowed to be vulnerable. This is Class A, classified information. If this gets out of my professional circle, it kills my leverage. A negotiator who likes to be tied up doesn't command respect at the table. It turns a psychological necessity into a punchline. I told Nina this in month 4. I prepared the environment. I cooked dinner. I put phones in the other room. I sat her down and I laid it out. I didn't use euphemisms. I explained the mechanics of the dynamic I needed. I told her, this is a vault. What happens in this bedroom is a separate reality from the rest of the world. It requires absolute silence. If you tell your friends, if you make a joke about it over wine, the trust is gone and we are done. I need to know you can carry this. She looked at me. She touched my hand. She said, I get it, Milo. I honor that. It's our secret. She validated the contract. I believed her. I thought she understood that the intimacy was the asset and she was the custodian. I was wrong. She wasn't a custodian. She was a broker waiting for the right market. The event was last Saturday. A barbecue at Dave's place. You know the environment. It's the standard suburban theater. Fenced yard, poorly maintained lawn, 30 people standing around holding drinks they don't really want, engaging in conversations they won't remember. I dislike these environments, but I recognize their utility. You have to maintain the network. If you go dark, people start asking questions. Presence is a form of camouflage. My strategy is standard. Arrive, secure a perimeter position near a structural element like a wall or a fence, nurse a single drink to avoid the "let me get you a refill" loop, and observe. I watch Nina operate. She thrives in this noise. She treats social capital like real currency. She was moving from group to group, harvesting attention. I watched her mirror the people she was with. When she was with the mothers, she was soft and concerned about school districts. When she was with the single women, she was raucous and conspiratorial. At the time, I filed this under social adaptability. In retrospect, it was a structural flaw. She changes her shape to fit the container. A person who does that has no rigid internal geometry. If you have no shape of your own, you have no boundaries. We were 2 hours in. The sun was going down, and the alcohol consumption was crossing the threshold of utility. The volume of the party had risen by 20 decibels. People were loosening up, boundaries were dissolving. I was standing near the patio door, talking to Dave about the supply chain issues in the lumber market. It was a safe, dry conversation. Dave is a decent guy, but he has no control over his own household. He lets his guests run the show. Then Sarah initiated contact. You know Sarah, she is the wife of one of Nina's friends. She is a maximalist. She occupies space aggressively. She believes that being loud is the same thing as being interesting. She had been drinking white wine since noon. Her inhibition filters were completely offline. She didn't approach me like a normal human. She flanked me. She stepped into my personal radius, close enough that I could smell the cheap Chardonnay and the desperation. She put a hand on my forearm. I hate uninvited physical contact. It triggers a threat response. I didn't flinch, but I locked my muscles. She leaned in. She wasn't whispering for privacy. She was stage whispering for an audience. She wanted Dave and the guys behind me here. She wanted to be the one dropping the bomb. So, she said, a grin plastering her face. Nina tells me you're a bad boy. Or should I say a good boy? She says you like to be told what to do. A little obedient puppy in the sheets. Huh? Who would have guessed, looking at you in that stiff shirt? I need you to slow down and process the mechanics of that second. Most men would flush. They would stutter. They would try to laugh it off to diffuse the tension. Oh, girls talk. Or some weak deflection. They would accept the frame that Sarah set. I didn't do that. I felt a cold wash of clarity. It wasn't embarrassment. Embarrassment implies I care about Sarah's opinion. Sarah is a chaotic variable. Her opinion is irrelevant data. What I felt was the structural collapse of the relationship. I ran the diagnostic instantly. 1. The data, obedient. Puppy, told what to do. These were not generic guesses. These were specific terms I had used in the vault. 1. The source, Nina. Sarah is too dull to invent this. Nina fed it to her. 3. The transaction. Why did Nina do it? Sarah is a gossip. Nina knows this. If you tell Sarah, you're publishing a press release. Nina didn't slip up. She didn't accidentally reveal it. She packaged my vulnerability and traded it for social bonding. She sold my dignity to get a laugh from a group of women she doesn't even like. The calculation was binary. Nina is a security risk. She views my private life as content for her public performance. Excuse me, I said to Dave. I didn't look at Sarah. You don't engage with the loudspeaker. You cut the power. I walked away. I scanned the yard. I located Nina. She was by the cooler, holding court with 3 other women. They were laughing. I could see the dopamine hitting her system. She was the center of attention. She looked happy. She looked secure. I walked a direct line toward her. I didn't storm. Storming is emotional. It signals a loss of control. I moved with economy. I walked like I was crossing a factory floor to shut down a machine that had caught fire. As I approached, the energy in her circle died. People have an instinct for danger. They saw my face. I wasn't wearing this social mask anymore. I was wearing the face I use when I fire a vendor for breach of contract. She saw me. She smiled, but it was a reflex. It withered when she met my eyes. She saw the flat, dead look. She knew. I stopped 2 feet from her. I didn't lower my voice to protect her, but I didn't shout to create a spectacle. I spoke at a normal, conversational volume. The silence of the group made it carry. Did you discuss our private life with these people? The other women looked down. They checked their manicures. They examined the labels on their beer bottles. They knew a line had been crossed. Nina laughed. It was a nervous, high-pitched sound. A deflection. Oh, Milo, don't be like that. Loosen up. Girls talk. It's funny. It's not a big deal. She attempted to reframe the breach. She tried to make me the problem. By saying loosen up, she was implying that my expectation of privacy was a defect, a sign of rigidity. She wanted to minimize the betrayal, so she didn't have to face it. I didn't let the frame stick. I said. Vulnerability requires trust. You just shattered it for a few laughs. She reached for my arm. A tactile anchor. She wanted to physically de-escalate the situation. Babe, seriously, you're making a scene. Everyone is looking. We are leaving, I said. Milo, we just got here. I'm not leaving yet. I am, I said. I didn't wait for a rebuttal. I turned 180 degrees and walked toward the gate. This was the test. If I stayed and argued, I was participating in her drama. I was validating her behavior as something negotiable. By leaving, I demonstrated that my presence is conditional. I heard the frantic clicking of her heels on the pavement behind me. She was following, not because she was sorry, but because the social pressure of being left behind was greater than the pressure of admitting fault. She couldn't handle the optics of being abandoned at a party. We reached my car. I unlocked it. We got in. The door slammed shut, sealing us in. The acoustics changed. The ambient noise of the party was gone, replaced by the hum of the climate control. I started the engine. I checked the mirrors. I pulled out of the cul-de-sac. I drove with precision. Hands at 10 and 2. Complete focus on the logistics of the road. I didn't look at her. You are being unbelievable, she said after we hit the main road. Her voice was trembling, a mix of adrenaline and indignation. Sarah is she's drunk. It was a joke. You're overreacting. You're acting like a psychopath. It wasn't a joke to me, I said, keeping my eyes on the lane markers. And it wasn't Sarah's fault. Sarah is a known quantity. She's a chaotic element. You're the one who gave her the ammunition. Everyone talks about their boyfriends. It's normal. My friends know everything about their husbands. It's how we bond. I'm not everyone, I said. I'm not those husbands. And we discussed this. Specifically, you agreed to the terms. Do you remember the conversation in the living room? Terms? You sound like a lawyer. It's a relationship, not a merger. Every relationship is a contract, I told her. It's an agreement on how we handle our resources, time, money, and information. You broke the clause on information. You did it casually. That tells me you don't value the asset. The asset? I'm your girlfriend, not an employee. You're a liability, I said. The word hung in the air. It sucked the oxygen out of the car. A liability? She whispered. Is that all I am to you? Right now? Yes. You demonstrated that you cannot protect sensitive data. If you tell Sarah about the bedroom, who do you tell about my finances? Who do you tell about my anxieties? There is no filter. You are a sieve. I would never hurt you. You just did. You just humiliated me to buy 5 minutes of popularity. I didn't think you'd care. It's just sex. It's not just sex, I said. It's trust. You showed me that nothing is sacred to you. If nothing is sacred, nothing is safe. She went silent. She stared out the window, watching the streetlights blur. She was realizing that the standard emotional manipulation tactics weren't working. Crying wouldn't fix this. Apologizing wouldn't fix this. This wasn't a fight. It was a ruling. I drove her to her apartment. I didn't drive to my place. If we went to my place, I'd have to get her out later. This way, the extraction is self-executing. I pulled up to the curb. I put the car in park. I left the engine running. The vibration of the engine through the seat was a reminder that I was already in motion, already leaving. She sat there. She was waiting for the turn. She expected me to sigh, to rub my face, to say, "Look, just don't do it again." She expected the cycle of rupture and repair. She didn't understand that some ruptures are structural. I turned to face her. I looked her in the eyes. I didn't look angry. I looked disappointed but detached. "You have no respect for the sanctity of this relationship," I said. "Milo, please," she said. Tears were forming now. "I'm sorry. I really am. I was stupid. I won't do it again." "You will," I said, "because you don't understand why it matters. You think privacy is something you trade. You think intimacy is a commodity. It's not. It's a privilege. It's a clearance level. You were granted access, and you abused it. You have lost the clearance. You're throwing everything away over one comment. 6 months of us. I'm preventing future damage," I said. "A woman who cannot keep her mouth shut will eventually cost me my reputation or my peace. I can't afford either. I have too much to lose." "You're going to be lonely," she said, her voice turning venomous. "You're going to be alone with your secrets and your rules." "I prefer silence to noise," I said. "Get out." She stared at me, searching for a crack. She wanted to see pain. She wanted to see that I was hurting because that would give her power. But I wasn't hurting. I was resolving a discrepancy. She opened the door. The interior light came on. She stepped out onto the sidewalk. She slammed the door hard enough to shake the frame. I didn't watch her walk to the building. I didn't wait to see if she got inside safely. She is an adult. Her safety is no longer my responsibility. I checked the side mirror. Clear. I merged back into traffic. I drove home. The city was quiet. My heart rate was steady at 72 beats per minute. When I got into my apartment, I engaged the lock. I stood in the living room. It was perfectly silent. The air was still. I took out my phone. I didn't send a long explanation. I didn't engage in a text war. I didn't ask for my spare key back. I just deleted her code from the smart lock. Access revoked. I blocked her number. I blocked her on social media. I blocked Sarah. I blocked Dave's wife. I severed the digital tendrils before they could grow back. I sent a brief text to Dave. Apologies for the abrupt exit. Wasn't feeling well. Catch up next week. I put the phone down on the counter. I walked to the fridge and got a beer. I sat on the couch. You think I should feel sad? You think I should be mourning the potential of what we had? But we didn't have potential. We had a misunderstanding. I thought she was a vault. She was a broadcast tower. There's a cost to letting people in. Most people don't run the numbers. They let people in because they are lonely or bored or horny. They don't calculate the exposure. They don't realize that the wrong person inside your defenses can do more damage in 10 minutes than an enemy can do in 10 years. I run the audit daily. Nina was a bad investment. She showed high volatility and low security. I liquidated the position before the market crashed. The apartment is quiet. The risk is mitigated. The problem is solved. That's the story. Now, drink your beer. The game is starting. Thank you for listening. That brings today's story to a close. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing. See you next time.